Hi, good morning everybody. Welcome to this webinar presentation on communicating critical information to on-site workers. As you can appreciate, it's quite a big topic, and delivering that critical information, whether it be health and safety, environmental, HR, training documents to site, and also getting timely, detailed responses can be quite a challenge. Add to that, this time spent calculating the information when you do get it back in various different formats, creating analytics from that data, whether it be to present to board or to clients, and then being able to use that moving forward to make more critical decisions. You can see quickly why having it as a digitized process not only will save you time, but also allow for potentially critical situations, especially with things like health and safety and environment, to be identified quickly and dealt with effectively, allowing the businesses to become more efficient and to drive performance. Today, I'm leading this. So my name's Barry Dell. I'm the new business sales for Red Sky. I've got Gary Marshall, who will be joining us in a mo. He's our principal consultant. We'll be taking on the demo. Just a little bit about Red Sky. So we've been a software provider for the construction industry for over 40 years. With our product, Red Sky Project Connect, we aim to save time, reduce project risk by having access to project data, forms, emails, documents, photos, drawings, all in one single secure location. It gives you unlimited collaboration across the entire supply chain, allows you to access unlimited projects. And unlike other software providers, we won't be charging you based on your project value or your company turnover. Just pay for what you need with users. So with that said, we're going to get straight into the demonstration. So I'm going to hand over to Gary, who's going to show you how we can start to look at this critical information and getting it straight out to those on-site workers. Over to you, Gary.
Okay, thanks, Barry. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Project Connect webinar. As Barry has explained, what we're going to do, we're going to give you an overview of our Project Connect platform, how we can use that to share documents from the office out to site, and importantly, how we can make it a two-way process where sites and other supply chain members can feed in information using digitized forms to get that information back into the office, back into the departments that need to access that information, and how we can present that using our analytical tools to turn that into meaningful, useful information, rather than it just being a document repository of information that maybe gets looked at should there be an issue, but isn't used for management decisions or for alerting and keeping the project team up to date with the latest activities on site. So I'm logged in here into the Project Connect system, just on a particular landing page. We'll have a look at some of these options as we go through as to how we can capture information. In this case, I've got some standard features that allow us to capture COVID-19 assessment forms, incidents, new starters, observations, site diaries, and that sort of thing. And we'll have a look at how we can actually take your own forms, so how you as businesses can digitize your familiar information that your employees are currently filling in, and have that available either through a web browser on a laptop on site, or as the case seems to be, more and more sites are enabling their staff with tablets, be it iOS, Android, or even just the good old smartphone that everybody carries around in their pocket to be able to capture that information and then make good use of that information when it comes back into the office. So we're going to spend maybe 30 minutes or so just giving you a very high-level overview of some of the features. We'll then welcome some questions, and you can then follow up on any questions after the event, should we need to. But hopefully just going to give you a good introduction into the Red Sky Project Connect system and how that can work. So from the landing page here, I've got various places we can go and have a look at various options. The system works around, in my case, I'm working the system around a series of projects, and I'm going to be collating information around those particular projects. But then when it comes back into the main office, that information can be viewed, accessed on a more global scale, or via a group of projects or group of people. but really just making sure that that information is collated in the way that you're interested in. I'm just going to go into into my view here on my particular project, and I'm looking at this from an internal team member point of view. And on the left-hand navigation here, we can see I've got a series of folders that are just documenting where information is being captured. So this is, in this case, going to show me a series of various documents. It could be that we're interested in looking at all health and safety-based information around a particular project. So in this case, I've got some standard documents. We can see there PDFs, Word documents around sort of various policies and that sort of thing. And what it's doing in this case, it's serving me the information. So from site, either using the browser here, or all of this is accessible on a smart device. So we could be running, in this case, maybe on a phone or a tablet, and the system will just dynamically change the layout based on the system that we're running it on. But in this case, running it back on the web browser, we can see the information. And importantly, what it's ensuring that happens is that I'm always dealing with the latest version of that particular document. I've added some additional bits of information to my view, so I can see that we're currently up at the 10th revision of this health and safety policy. As far as a user is concerned, or an end user is concerned, by clicking on this and actually viewing that document, I'm always actually looking at the latest revision. It doesn't matter if there's been 10 previous revisions. When we're coming into here, we're always dealing with, in this case, as a view, the latest revision of that particular document. I've opened this up in a generic viewer, so I'm seeing the document. And I've also got the ability to annotate, mark up these images as well, if necessary, save those away as internal revisions, but I'm always looking at the latest revision. Okay, using various tools here, we can add bits of information. You might want to add sort of stamps and that sort of thing to images, and just be able to annotate appropriately. What we also get is a full audit trail. We'll come on to how this is important, and maybe when we look at the forms and how we can get that information back in. But just clicking on the date information here, we get various options revolving around each of these particular documents. We go into the activity. We can just see here an audit trail that's basically showing me all of the different revisions. So we're up to revision 10, just showing me here the latest update where I've read the document. So it's just captured the fact that we've maybe had a look at that. But it's just showing me here the full life cycle of a particular document. So all the different revisions it's gone through. We've got various bits of information that we can use to view those documents. But importantly, what's happened with it. So who's checked it out, who's revised it, who's amended it, who's updated it, who's read it, has it been emailed to somebody. So all of those bits of auditability sit around any document in the system. These screens can be hidden away so only certain users can get to this information. But the idea being is that everybody is dealing with the latest revision of that particular document. And this, again, just opening up the side panel, can cover all sorts of areas. So all these documents, drawings, reports, and these can be updated by your own internal team members, but also third-party members of the supply chain. So we're able to open up the system to all people across the entire supply chain. One of the other areas that we're going to sort of concentrate on in a bit more detail is not just these documents that are coming in that are more sort of static related documents, but it's more about the collation of data maybe from sites where you want to issue sites or individuals with certain forms that they need to fill in on a cyclical basis, be it weekly checks, daily checks, incident forms that happen as and when incidents occur. And we want that information to be collated on site and returned in a timely fashion directly to the people responsible for dealing with those actions. Just coming back into my mobile view here, these could be using the collection of standard forms that we provide with Project Connect. In this case, I might want to come in and we have some new starters on site. So I want to start their site induction. In this case, if we click on the new starter button, it's bringing up the standard form that somebody can then fill out, take photographs of any documentation, photographs of the person, just to ensure that we're dealing with the right person that we're expecting to be on site. and just collating that information that can then be saved, stored back in the system with a copy of the form, copy of any of the attachments, and then that can flow through to various workflows for people to activate that information, view that information, or actually act upon it. So if there's workflows involved and certain things need to happen, different things can stream to different people. In the like of things like incidents, again, this is an example of our standard incident form that we can provide. We're able to then allocate it to different people or record who was involved, who are the witnesses, and that sort of thing. So just really being able to capture people that are either part of the system or part of the project team, and then pass those bits of information on. And all of this information gets collated. So in simple terms, we can capture all of that information, in this case, capturing it back on a series of site-based tiles. In this case, it could be looking at an individual project, or it could be looking across the entire system and just showing me maybe all the new starter forms or all the open COVID forms that might need elements being followed up. And then just drilling into these will just show me the underlying data that sits beneath there. And we'll look at some other examples of this, how we can turn these into charts, graphs, and start doing things with it. But we're just capturing that information and then turning it, rather than it just being a form, we can still get back to the form. So a double click will just take me in and show me the form that was filled out by that person. But we've just got that information back into the system, and then it's ready for us to start doing some analysis on, or routing it through the approval routines to get that information reviewed and published, so it becomes part of the reportable information. Okay, so that's all well and good. You know, we're providing a series of standard forms. So again, you know, various bits of ways of capturing that information. But more and more people are coming to us and sort of asking that we, you know, how can we collate information that's our information, and how can we get the information back into the site using our own forms? So what we have is a form digitization system, really, that allows you to take your own forms, and I'll show you how you do this in a second, upload them into a repository, and then convert them into a digitized form. And then from that form, we can then start doing things with that underlying data and looking at how we can process it. So what I'm going to do in this case, I'm going to come down to my Explorer system on my laptop here, and I'm going to take an incident form. And this form, we can see here, is just a Word document. I'm going to drag it over the document repository here, and that form's going to be uploaded into the system. Gets uploaded as a new document, and then what I can do is say, okay, I now want to have a look at that document and then start doing some form digitization with it. Okay, so it's loaded the new form in, and then I can come in here and say it's going to be a form. So we can click on the form button, and I'm going to turn it into a form by ticking the box, and then we can then run over the top of that my form designer. And what that's going to do is open up that Word template. And that's really the last time that document is a Word document. It's literally, in this case, being used as a backdrop to my form. This could be a PDF, could be a PNG, it could be a JPEG. In this case, it was a Word document. And I can then start trying to turn this into a digitized form. So using the toolkit I have, I can add fields. So in this case, I can go over the top, allocate some fields on here where I want them. We'll just put a few fields on just as an example, and then I'll show you an example of a fully completed form. We'll put an incident type in. We can just lay these out where we want them, maybe a description, make that a bit bigger. So we're just laying out the form really as I might want it to appear on the device or on the browser when they're being filled in. We might just put a name in here, contact number. And then I'm going to go to the bottom, so I'm not going to fill out all of these. We maybe put a signature field in, date field. And I'm then just going to add just another field there, which we'll come back to. and a submit button. So all I'm doing is just really digitizing the form, popping on some boxes over the overlay, which I can then capture information from. And then what we do, we then tell it each of these fields, because we want this to be information, not just in effect they filled in PDF piece of information. On the right-hand side, we're able to tell it what each of these fields is going to be and the type of data we want somebody to pop into it. So in this case, we can come in, we can set up a project. It could be we want this to be a search field. So we're actually going to have a search that's going to pull in the projects that we've set up within Project Connect. So we're not just guessing project numbers. We have a distinct list of those that we want to use. So I'm just going to tell it to go away and pick up data from there. Site Manager, again, so we're just going to put Site Manager. Text field, yeah. Again, it could be a lookup, or it could just default to me as the person filling in. Or down here, I could turn it into a pick list. So I could just put, you know, the manager's initials in, and this would become a pick list for me to choose from. Again, incident type. Again, from the list, I'm going to choose, again, text, and again, pick list. So it could just be a slip, trip, form, whatever we want the information to be available on the actual pick list. And then we won't fill all of these out. Down here, signature. So in this case, we want to capture some signatures. So again, we have a signature field that can be filled in via a browser or via the mobile using your finger or using the mouse if you're doing it on a laptop. So we can set this as a signature field. Fields can be set as mandatory as well. So we can basically make sure things are being filled out appropriately. Date. So you just get the idea that all we're doing is digitizing that form. Again, the default value on a date field could be today, so we can automatically populate that. And then here, I'm just going to set up this field and call it photos. So running on a mobile device will automatically activate the camera and allow the camera to be used to take a photograph and then maybe annotated. Or if I'm running it just through a desktop browser, it will activate the File Explorer option and allow me to attach any documents. So we're just building up our form. And then in this case, you can save that away. And that form is now in the system ready for me to use. Okay, so if we went back into our repository, I could just simply from here click on there on the actual document and say I want to create from this template. And what that's going to do is open up the document. Okay, and we can see in my broad brush way of quickly doing that particular form. I'll go into a fully completed form in a second. But we can see that the fields that I've created have now been activated and they're now turned into the various searches and various lookups that we told it we wanted on there. So in this case, it's just returning the jobs that I have available. In this case, I've got nearly 600 jobs that I'm able to choose from. That can be restricted based on me and the user, or it could be that it knows I'm only registered against one particular project, so it will always default to that particular project number. Okay, so we can just go through and then just populate our data as necessary, our drop downs and our incident types. Okay, so just being able to capture the information, signature fields here. In this case, I can just sign with my mouse, save that away, and that's then storing that as a digital signature against that particular item, and then any photos and submission. So just capturing that information simply and then being able to submit it directly from here. A better way of doing this, or a more site-based way that's probably more useful to your end users rather than having laptops, is to be able to automatically send this out to a series of mobile devices. So over here, we could tell it that we want this form to be a mobile form, and we can tell it maybe which groups of users or which roles need to be able to see this particular form. So if I just click down here and just bring up my iPad that I've got running here, So this is just showing me, in this case, just a front screen on my mobile app, allowing me to access different types of form. In this case, if I go into incidents and choose incident record, here's an example of that same form where I've just created a few additional fields. And again, we can then go through and populate this information directly from the mobile device in exactly the same way. In this case, we might have different things that we're choosing, our incident types, and just basically populating the information. And again, we could then have a photograph being taken. So in this case, we just take a photograph of my laptop, use the photograph, and in this case, when we use that particular photograph, we can then have the ability to annotate it. So in this case, it may be that we just want to use the pencil just to highlight certain areas where there might be an issue. Save that away, and we then get an annotated photograph that can be sent back in, just indicated here with the number 1 on there that we've got a form being filled in. And we're then just capturing that information as necessary, with mandatory fields again as necessary, and just capturing the bits of information that we need. In this case, again, using the mobile, click to sign. Again, I can just use my finger to sign away. That information is collated, dated, and then it can then be submitted. And at this point, because I'm running it on a mobile device, it will either send it directly back into the office if I have online connection, which is signified by the green light here that's just gone into the strobe to say that it's syncing that data back. But the green light signifies that we're actually online. So that information has now come back in, and it could be notifying, in this case, the health and safety manager that he has a new record, or it's sitting on a series of dashboards alerting people of changes to the information. So what we can do with the information, we're not just literally collecting documents. The power of the system is that information, when it comes back in, can drive powerful dashboards and analytics. In this case, I've set up an example here of a health and safety manager dashboard that's showing the incidents, slips and trips, hazards. There could be some site audits that need to be followed up. And if I then just double click on one of these charts, so I'm looking at my incident information here, we can double click on these charts, and it will then take us into the underlying data. So this is just going to give me a table, in this case, my default view, where it's listing all of the incidents that have taken place. So we could sort this in data order. Okay, so we can see here at the top, the one that I've just filled in, capturing all of the information. Got my paperclip, which is going to indicate that we've got attachments on there. And we can then just go back in and view the form itself. So we can bring up the full form that's going to show me, in effect, a PDF copy of that form that's filled in with the signatures, with all of that information. This could be issued off to third parties. So we could either send this off through a series of emails, or we could send it off as a document for somebody to approve. But we're just capturing the information. But importantly, not just the form, not just the information on a piece of paper or a digital document that's going to be stored away and only retrieved if necessary. We've got that information into these powerful business analytical screens that we can turn into our charts and our graphs. And we can use it to filter and format the information as well. So we might be interested in knowing all of the items by site manager. So I can group up by site manager. In this case, it's just going to roll those up, give me the name of the site manager, and I've got counts just to show me the numbers. And then you've got the tools that would allow us maybe then to turn that into our bar charts or our pie charts that we can drill through to the underlying data. Okay, so it's all about capturing the information, being able to do things with it, but importantly, alerting people of when things might be reportable or when there's incidents that they might need to follow up on, or in the case here, I've got these tiles that are showing me that there's 2 open issues that I need to look at. So this is my approvals, really, 2 items that I need to look at, and they're both overdue. Drilling into that, it's just going to show me then from the overview tiles there, show me there's 2 items. When I drill in, I can see the 2 items that I need to deal with. And again, you can pop these open to make them full screen, or it will remember the size that I want. But I've got the audits there that we can drill into and either edit the information in line or open up the underlying form and update the information. And again, all revisions are being collated. So it's all about really the easy retrieval of the data, but more importantly as well, really, the ease that site people can receive any new forms that might come part of the pack just automatically onto their mobiles. It will automatically sync through based upon their groupings, and then just being able to fill out those forms as and when, just on their mobile or on a tablet or through the site office laptop, and get that information directly back to the relevant people and making it visible to everybody that needs to have access to that information in a secure, collaborative space to make sure things get actioned appropriately. Okay, so that's really what we're one of the bows, or one of the arrows we have with Project Connect, that allow us really to capture site-based information. And this was really just designed to give you an overview really of how we can capture these site-based bits of information in a timely and also familiar way, because we're using your forms to capture the information. So it's not a case of standard forms being issued that have no resemblance to what your employees or your subcontractors are used to currently. Okay, so hopefully you found that introduction useful. We're going to open the floor just to a few questions that we've had pinging through as we've been talking.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of questions here, Gary. One of them is, are we limited to the amount of forms we can create into the system?
Okay, yeah, good question. The answer to that is no. Really, it's up to you how many forms you build in. My document repository here, where I've been creating forms, I've created 50 or 49 forms so far. They just get created as and when you need them. You can have revisions of those forms so they can evolve over time. And what we do as part of the implementation of the system, we just show you how to do this. So it's all administered by your own teams. You're not having to come back to us to upload new form templates. It is as simple as demonstrated, where you just basically drag in a template in most cases. You can use an online designer, but we find it's a lot easier to generate a nice layout using Word, convert that into a PDF, or just use the Word document with logos and that sort of thing, and then just load them up. And then they just become available to, if I click on all forms, these are all of the forms that I have available on my mobile at the moment. And that will just update if a new form's added. I don't need to do anything, don't need to come back into the office. That will then just become part of my form capture, in this case, the diary. So yeah, no limits to the number of forms. Not all users have to see all of the forms. So when forms are created, you can see over here when I was uploading the form on the mobile group, I left the group blank, but this could be allocated to certain people. So site supervisors might get different forms to health and safety inspectors, or to different trades you have running on sites that you might want to capture information. So yeah, the number of forms, unlimited.
Excellent. Another question we've got is, can we set analytical data?
Yeah, so hopefully you've seen that. I think the question came in before I got round to the analytical screen. So yeah, so this is just an example. So this is where I was just using the toolkit to basically say, okay, the data's coming back. So when I created the forms, the reason for giving each of those fields, you know, a proper name rather than just calling them field 1, field 2, and so on, is so when we're looking at that data, we just go back into this this incidence data again. Each of the columns on the actual form that are named become the columns of data that we're wanting to capture the information against. We can then use that to, as we saw, to filter, to format, to group, and then turn it using the tools into the different types. So, you know, our vertical bars, our smooth bars, pie charts, what we call a tile. So the tile is the view where we might just see the number of incidents in a particular area. So in this case, I had one for my slips and trips. So this is what we term a tile, which is just a description and a number. Also, another example of the tile is the outstanding issue. So in this case, I'm telling it that we've got 2 outstanding open issues and 2 are overdue. So it's looking at the columns of data, doing some filter and formatting. So just using some of the basic analytical tools that are built into those inquiries, allowing me to, you know, build functions based on dates or any of the data that's in there. And then I can present charts, graphs, reports. So I can turn these into, there's a full, we call it a word reporter reporting pack, which allows me again to generate documents that might be based around Word documents that can then pull in the data into a document that would then allow narratives around not just individual types of form, but across all my forms or all of my site data. So yeah, the analytics is a key thing. You know, one of the reasons we're collating this data and storing it is so you can analyze that information and not simply being a document that gets stored away, you know, maybe currently in a yellow Windows folder on a server somewhere, and then somebody has to file it away and then will manually go and search for it when an incident arises, or a year later some follow-ups required over an incident. Then you have to go and try and find the data that relates to it. So every piece of information that comes back against those fields on those forms, stored in the database, using your terminology for those fields, and then you can produce sample dashboards, in this case, health and safety manager across the board. It could be project related, so I'm only seeing, if I'm a site manager, bits of information from across all of the forms that have been filled out of things that need my attention. So yeah, fully user-defined analytics available across all of that form data.
Excellent, and I think you've just answered my last question as well, Gary. So you covered 2 there. I think that's pretty much it for today's session. I'd just like to thank everybody for joining. Thank you, Gary, as well, for the demonstration. And if there is anything further, please get in contact with us. Our emails are available, and we can answer any other questions offline. But apart from that, thanks very much for joining us, and have a good day.